Best job in the world? I don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty close.
If you haven't guessed already, I work for the government. And if you have to work for the government, I can't think of a better job than this one. So I'm a radio tech for the government, and we go out to these wonderful remote sites and do radio work. Part of that includes replacing these old buildings that are falling apart and putting in new shelters. So I want to take you along on that little adventure and let you see how that all turned out. It was interesting. So if you're someone that gets queasy at the sight of what appears to be a perfectly good tower falling over, well, you may want to avert your eyes here on this next part. And the reason we didn't even bother trying to save this tower is pretty much just down to economics. It's to get a gin pole out there to take this thing down, we would have to do what's called a sling load underneath the helicopter, and they have to do it without passengers in the bird. So that would require an extra trip, which adds about, probably an hour's worth of flight time to get a gin pole slung in out there. So you figure, that helicopter's costing us about $2,000 an hour flight time. So to save a 60-foot Roan 45 that was probably put up in the mid-70s, maybe even early 70s, it just doesn't make any sense. So the easiest way is to just cut this thing down. And the way we do these is we cut the one leg that faces the guy wire we're going to cut, and then we cut about 3/4 of the way through the other two legs, so they're kind of a hinge point. And once that's done, we go cut that back guy wire, and over it comes, as you'll see here in just a moment. So at this point, it's pretty much up to our contractor that puts in the new building to sling this thing out. And they'll sling it out whole and cut it up at their truck for scrap metal. It's part of their contract to backhaul the old building and tower. So if we just get it on the ground, it's pretty much their deal from here on out. Now this is a couple days later. And this is where things get pretty interesting. If you look here at the level of the clouds in this shot compared to this shot, you'll notice there's quite a difference in the level of the clouds there between those two shots. You know, that mountain right behind the helicopter there, that is about 9,500 feet. And if we go back to this shot, you'll notice those clouds are really not that high. This helipad is about 3,800 foot elevation. So those clouds, I kind of judged it off of Google Earth, were probably only about 5,000 to 5,200 feet MSL. And the site we're flying to, it's one of our lower sites, but it's still up at about 5,150 feet. So you can see that kind of presents a problem, and here shortly we'll see how this turns out. So what do you think? Best job in the world kind of material? Well, maybe, maybe not. Depends on what your idea of the best job is. If you like the outdoors, doing these kind of adventures, man, it's a great job. Now mind you, this was a pretty unusual circumstance. I've been doing this since 1991. I've been stuck out on sites 4 different times now. This is the first time we've ever got the helicopter stuck out there with us. Usually they drop us off and go do something else. And this time they happen to get stuck in there with us. You know, so all the other times we just hiked out. This, you know, I'd rather have the helicopter out of there and deal with just hiking out or stay in or whatever. Having the helicopter stuck in there with us was kind of a logistical nightmare. So that hike out wound up being about 2.5 to 3 miles down to the nearest road. And it's not much of a road. And from that point you can take a UTV into the site. It's not ideal at all. We've done it once and we swore we would never do it again. It's rough. It's just terrible trail going in there. From the shots I took, you know, it looks pretty flat, but the camera really flattens things out. It's fairly steep and rocky, and it's just not easy to get into. So we made it down there to that point about 9:30 at night, started a fire, warmed up. Our legs were soaking wet from tall grass, and it was wet. They made it into us about 10 o'clock or so. And the main reason we hiked down was to explain to those guys where to go, because they hadn't been in there before, and kind of explain the trail and how you get up to the site, especially in the dark. So we met them down there, explained how to get in there, because we had one person in the party, happened to be the pilot. They kind of had a bum foot, and there's no way he could have made that hike out of there. So he stayed with the helicopter along with our helicopter manager, and when the UTV showed up, they went in and got him and brought him back out. By the time they made it back to us, it was a little after midnight. And then we still had another 3.5 hour drive back to town, because it's like 70 miles of dirt road from town to get out there. And a lot of it's pretty crappy road. So it's a long drive out there. So we didn't get back to the hotel till like 3:30 in the morning. Probably not the best footage to show you for the best job in the world, but if you like the outdoors and this kind of adventure, like I said, this has only happened to me 4 times since 1991. This particular scenario, bringing a private pilot, single engine land, fixed wing, not rotor, there's probably no way I would have attempted that flight out there, but it's one of those deals, hindsight's 20/20. The contractor had made it, they were kind of waiting on us to get our part done. So we decided, well, let's go ahead and go, even though the weather looks terrible. And so we went, and you know, the weather going out, it didn't look real good, but there was always openings. So we figured, well, we got socked in for a little bit, there'll be an opening and we'll be able to get back out of here. As soon as we see the first opening, we're out of here. Well, it never happened. The whole time it stayed just like that. We never could get out of there, and we dropped about 1,000 or 1,500 foot in elevation by the time we got down to the road. And you know, we barely got clear air once we got down to that level. So yeah, it just wasn't a great situation that day. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. We still got 2 more of these buildings to set. We were supposed to do them all last week, but it didn't work out. I'll try and bring a camera along and get some of that with me. Like I said, I usually don't have a lot of time to do this camera thing when I'm at work, but I'll see if I can get a little footage for you. And thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.